Welcome back. This is Inside Politics on KTN News. Thank you for staying with us on the program. Now, when we ended the first part, Kipchumba Karori was saying that the ODM leader, Raila Odinga, has the eye for talent, but does not have the capacity, to nurture that talent. Kenneth Chesa, you seem to disagree with that.
I disagree with my learned senior's assertion that Raila Odinga has a gift of identifying talent, but cannot nurture and maintain that particular talent. Nothing then can be further from the truth. Raila Odinga has nurtured and sustained very many talented politicians in this country. Raila Odinga is a political institution in our democracy. I say so advisedly because all our politicians, as they stand today, other than President Uhuru Kenyatta, have been political interns in Raila Odinga's School of Politics at one time. William Ruto was Raila's political intern. He ran away before the internship program was complete. Musalia Mudavadi has been coming for internships on and off. He is currently off. He will again be on. Moses Wetangula had his career resurrected by Raila Odinga when the High Court in Bungoma nullified his election and Musikari Kombo was on the verge of rendering him irrelevant. And therefore, let us give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. ODM party has a party leader called Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga believes in some ideologies. Some of the ideologies that he believes in is complete loyalty, complete trust in the party structures. If anyone is not interested in those virtues as espoused by Odinga, like William Ruto was, he took off. He has never looked back. If Olekina thinks that time has come for Raila to allow more independence within a party structure, Olekina can still take off and either go and vie as independent candidate or form his political party or join Jubilee for that matter. Otherwise, let us give credit to where it is due. Raila Odinga has maintained and resurrected many political careers. When Musalia Mudavadi lost elections in Sabatia in 2002, Raila took his hand in 2005, brought him to the political limelight, made him MP for Sabatia, appointed him Deputy Prime Minister, and has maintained him on the national platform. And in summary, I'm trying to say that politicians who are almost losing irrelevance have a tendency of hanging around Raila Odinga to gain political relevance. And once they acquire the larger-than-life image, they think that they can outwit him, and they try fighting him. What will you be doing in ODM if you are dissatisfied with it?
Fair enough. Very well said. Dismas, there is a feeling or thought, school of thought, that the ODM party leadership does not want a very independent-minded person to chair the County Public Accounts and Investments Committee. Would you agree with this?
Well, I don't think that assertion is an accurate one. What every political party wants is that when you are sent to a particular committee, you dance to the drum beats of that political party. So when you sit down and agree that our candidate for this seat is going to be Professor Ongeri, you have the unique responsibility of ensuring that it's Professor Ongeri who takes the position. But midway in the conversation, if you decide that you are going to take sides and work with Tanga Tanga or Keleweke to upset the party position, then the party needs to come in and stamp its authority. So whatever the party did, in my view, was in order, and it happens all over the world. A few days ago, when there was an impeachment agenda against Donald Trump, he looked at the members of his political party, the Republicans, and he told them, if you're not going to support my position, let me know. And if you declare that you're not going to support me, then you will be on your way home. So in fact, if Olekina feels that he's now liberal, is an independent thinker, and he's got the he's got the vote behind him, then he should do the most honorable thing that we expect when people disagree to do. If he has capacity, let him resign today, run for that seat, and then go back to the Senate as an independent member, then go back to the very committee and see whether he's going to be elected. But while we respect that every political party has got this unique opportunity to do as they please, they must look at the face of Kenya. When you look at the leadership of both the National Assembly and the Senate, all the leadership positions, apart from the Muvita MP, all of them come from the former Nyanza province. Look at the majority leader at the National Assembly, majority leader at the Senate, minority leader at the National Assembly, minority leader at the Senate, the chief whip, everybody. They come from either Kisii or Nyanza province. So if you're telling us that you want to have a strong political party with a national face, then how can you just appoint people from your village or across the road to these leadership positions? So Raila Odinga, in as much as this is a political party, because there's a thin line between Raila Odinga and ODM, all of them are synonyms, he must show leadership that he's leading a national political party and allow other talent to come in. But when you're allowed as a talent, do not come and start flexing your muscles. If you think Raila Odinga is a dictator, is a bully, and you want to take him head on, resign or run as an independent. You know, when you join a political party, you're not bound by chains to this political party. If you're unhappy, just take a walk and seek for another term instead of running around and telling us that Raila is fighting me. I thought that it was very naive of Ole Kina to imagine that Raila Odinga can start fighting a senator. I mean, Raila Odinga has got a system at the flick of his finger which is going to punish him. And then the point raised by Ken that Raila is responsible for resuscitating many political careers, I think that's on the extreme side. There are people, I mean, like for instance, you have Babu Namwamba. After falling out with Raila Odinga, it's not Raila Odinga who appointed him as a CIS. It's not Raila Odinga who appointed William Samoei Ruto as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. In as much as Raila has got this political capital, the people who will get out of the wings of Raila Odinga and challenge him. So we may just find that it's going to be a Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto battle in 2022.
But this must, the appointment of Babu Namwamba as CIS, many people wouldn't say it has resurrected him politically. It has tried to rehabilitate him. But do you disagree with the fact that Raila Odinga has held the hand of one Musalia Mudavadi when he was on the brink of political extinction?
You see, during every election, people come together and they look at numbers. Unfortunately, that's what happens in Kenya. So people ask themselves during an election, what numbers do you have? What numbers can you place on the table? And it's Raila always who is pursuing his selfish interest, who goes out to fish people he thinks are going to add political capital. Right now, if Raila thinks, say, Ole Kina is going to add any political capital in his campaign to secure the MA votes, he'll bring him back and he'll ensure that he's on board. Raila does not just go looking for, Tom, Dick, and Harry to join his political party. Otherwise, I mean, there are so many Kenyans today who would be in the middle of it. So he identifies political talent. But just to imagine that him alone can take you to the next level, it will not happen. I mean, Raila Odinga was with the president during when we were voting for the Chungwa. But the president decided to pull out. He carved his political space. And now he's the president of the Republic of Kenya. I'm talking about President Kenyatta. Okay. So this fallacy being created in Kenya that unless Raila blesses you, he places his hand on your head, you are going nowhere. There are many people who will get out of his wings and they make a huge success. The president is one of them. Musalia is one of them. Ruto is one of them.
Mark, what is your take on Raila Odinga's style of leadership and the leadership inside ODM? But do you think ODM is a democratic party? And because we're talking about these purges, when Moses Wetangula was purged from his position as chairman, as a minority leader in the Senate, the Narok Senator, Ledama Ole Kina, was seen to enforce that move, saying that Moses Wetangula was a man with one cow and couldn't purport to be a chairman of the cattle dip. Now the axe is falling on himself. Do you think ODM is a democratic party?
Let me first remind Dismas that he needs to change his gauge for who is a resounding success politically, because I highly doubt that 300,000 votes in 2013 made Mudavadi a resounding success. I'd really like to know his metrics, because he just compared Mudavadi to Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, who are successes, but not so much Mudavadi. But that said, is ODM democratic? Let's understand one thing. In Kenya, the reason why we struggle to understand political democracy through political parties is because we've never had parties within the multi-party system that have lasted for long. Here's what I mean. In the UK today, if you do not toe the party line, it is expected that you resign and you leave the position that has been bequeathed to you by virtue of the party. Now, that's very, very important to understand. There are certain positions that are bequeathed to you by virtue of the party that you exist under. You cannot then stand and say that I am going to run amok and run awry of what the party wants and expect to be supported by the same party. It does not work. And that is why even the framers of the standing orders, the framers of the constitution and the laws that govern parliament made it very clear that it is possible for a party to de-whip you of any position, including the MPship or senatorship itself, because the Senate position you have, you came under a political party. If that political party, through its mechanisms, removes you from its ranks, then you also lose your Senate seat. So in ODM doing what it is doing, it is actually strengthening democracy. Now we can argue the points of, do we want an independent thinking Ledama, and it's his independence the problem that he's having with the party? That's a totally separate issue. The issue is that the actions of ODM within Senate this particular week are within the law and are to the benefit of the tenets of democracy, especially a multi-party democracy. That said, the arguments and the rumors and innuendo of whether Ledama Olikina was going to run roughshod of Raila Odinga remains to be seen, because there is nothing, it's not the chairmanship of this particular committee that gives him the ability to run against Raila Odinga. He has a voice, he has a social media platform, he can go to media anytime, and he can go to the floor of the Senate and actually do the opposite of what Raila wants. His bravery is not judged only when he's a chairman. Let him show that bravery even where he is.
Let me ask you this, Mark. What is your crystal ball telling you on what's going to happen to the Narok senator? Because the Bungoma senator did warn the ODM party that that divorce was going to be messy and noisy and with casualties. In the end, it was very quiet, and he was the only casualty. And the Narok senator, in the beginning of this, he said that, you know, the party was messing with the wrong number. How do you see this one ending up?
Well, he has to say that because of his own personal ego. But the truth of the matter is, and he should probably learn from Moses Wetangula, that Raila Odinga and the ODM party are not things to be stared down with kid gloves. If you do not have the financial muscle, the political muscle to do so, please don't dare. Let us also remember that Olekina is a political novice of great standing nonetheless, but he's a novice. And the games that ODM can play around his head can end his career if he thinks that because he spoke very strongly about and vociferously about defending the Mau forest for the Mau community, and that's enough for him. He needs to remember that Raila Odinga paid the ultimate price because of that very same forest in losing the Kalenjin support towards the 2013 election. So he does not have much against Raila, and there's very little in his backyard, in his arsenal, that's going to defend him against a Raila onslaught should he decide to take Raila on.
Great. Jero, let me come to you. We seem to be losing you on the Zoom. I hope Kenya Power is not switching you off. I hope you're with us now. And there was a letter from my majority leader in the Senate, Kipchumba Murkomen, the Elgeyo Marakwet senator, saying that it was their considered opinion that this position of chairman or chairperson of the County Public Accounts and Investments Committee should not be a preserve of either party. Right now, according to the standing orders, it is a preserve of the minority party or coalition of parties. He was saying that it should be left to the senators to decide who is fit to be chair. Do you think he has a point?
I think that Senator Murkomen has a point, because ultimately any senator chairing any one of the committees is there for the 47 counties of the Republic of Kenya. It is not a question of if you are a ruling party or minority that you will represent the counties that reflect where your party operates. So in a way, that is something that should be addressed and possibly tackled during the next August House. But I just want to reflect on something. Listening to all of you, I have not heard a single reference back to Wanjiko. When I listen to the wrangles at that level, Whether my sympathies are with ODM or my sympathies are with Ledama, or saying he should toe the line, or all this great comparison of or description of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I mean, I think he has even surpassed the late President Moi as a professor of politics. With all of those kind of accolades and adjectives and ideas around what ODM is and how the party line should be towed, not once has there been any kind of reference to the ethos and the philosophy of what these political parties stand. So we might be looking at ODM now, and for me, I see a clear lack of democracy there. But we could also be looking at Jubilee and looking at the Kieleweke Tanga factions that have emerged, or any other political party. Ultimately, for me, none of these discussions have a bearing on the protection of devolution, of the protection of Wanjiku. So I move away from the high political analysis to say, ultimately, what does this mean? If we are hearing that there's potentially referendum coming up first week in August, that the rumbles are back in motion to start looking at BBI, COVID-19 notwithstanding, then once again as Kenyans, we're going to be led down this garden path. And this garden path is one that does not help us understand how better to put food on our tables. And about Senator Ledama Olekina, if I were to assess his ability to chair the committee, I would also look at his past performance. My entry point is his role when he was on the Senate Energy Committee. I'd like him to tell me what he did. I know he was vociferously in defense of the appointment of the GDC chair, but the same GDC was very busy shall I say, taking the rights away of many members of the Ma Nation, as he likes to call it. So I also look at track record. So ultimately, even though I may be sympathetic and feel that Ledama is a little bit of the underdog, I also say, what's your track record? What is your history of protecting Kenyans, not just people from the Maasai Nation, but all Kenyans? That is what I'm interested in. So whether it is a Kieleweke, a Tanga, an ODM, majority, minority, I want to know what you are doing to protect the people of the Republic of Kenya. And that is exactly where I get off in terms of the analysis. As for ODM, let the wagons continue to be circled. There's obviously something afoot, and we'll come back and revisit this one of these days to understand why it is that it is so important that Professor Ongeri be the chair of this committee.
Well said. Kipchumba, have the final say on this. I have two questions for you. Do you then think, basing on what Jarotich is saying, that it is Wanjiku and Mora and Nafula who are being betrayed in this democracy that is happening inside our Senate, Parliament, to be precise? And the second question is, where do you see this landing us in terms of what our legislature means in terms of, oversight of devolution and all that?
Thank you, Ben. When you read Article 96 that sets down the roles of Senate, you get a feeling that the Senate has three roles: to legislate, represent, and oversight. I don't know at what point the legislators in the last Senate saw it fit to qualify that a senator from the minority party must chair the CPIC. Because in there lies a problem, because the Constitution has given all senators the same role to oversight, legislate, and represent. By oversighting, we mean any senator can chair that CPIC. So away from the Jubilee ODM politics and the letter from Murkomen, I think there is need for us to have a sober look into how we constitute the CPIC and all the Senate, either sessional or standing committees, because every senator has capacity and has a role. They earn a salary for oversighting and for being the guardian angels of devolution. Therefore, the issue of qualifying one and attaching them to a political party will lose that point. The other aspect is this, Ben. I sympathize with Ledama Olekina because from where I sit, Ledama Olekina is a pedigree test tube moran, and he has a bigger-than-life ego that has made him think that he is very consequential in Ma politics. It is just Olekina trying to post his political capital so that he inherits the shoes that were left behind by the late Olentimama. And I want to remind Olekina that there is a youth by the name of Memusi.
All right, we seem to be losing the audio of Kipchumba. They are saying very important things. We'll try to fix that for you. Bwana Wakili, maybe you can summarize this for us. Where does this leave our legislature in terms of oversight, specifically in the Senate? That is, of course, devolution.
I want to agree with what Kipchumba Karori is saying, that the role of the Senate is clearly outlined under Article 96 of our Constitution. And to say the least, if Parliament, if the Senate were to be functional in a manner that the Constitution has designed it, we will not be talking about the minority or the majority. Remember that government has three organs. We have Parliament, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary. Parliament should be as independent from the executive as is the judiciary. But in Kenya, there is a thin line between Jubilee in government and Jubilee in Parliament. NASA in opposition, or NASA on the streets, and NASA in Parliament. We should be looking forward to a situation where Parliament is very, very independent, Parliament is functional, and it does not matter who becomes the chair of County Public Accounts and Investment Committee. Even if Kipchumba Murkomen became the chair of that particular committee, Kenyans should be happy that Kipchumba Murkomen understands the role of the Senate, appreciates it, and he will discharge that function lawfully and in compliance with the Constitution. Saying so, we then appreciate the circumstances surrounding the relationship between Kenyan Parliament and the Kenyan Executive. And while appreciating that, we must therefore say that it is important that the leader of CPAIC comes from the opposition, because government cannot oversight itself. Jubilee is in Senate through its senators. If we allowed any senator to become the chair of such a crucial oversight committee, we are then allowing the president to choose who to oversight his institutions and to oversight our counties, which will be counterproductive. So unless we achieve the high democratic standards of having a functionally independent parliament, it is important that we let the opposition take charge of crucial oversight committees.
Thank you for that. So we leave it. It is a story, a debate that is currently ongoing, even as we wait and see what will be happening in the Senate concerning the all-important County Public Accounts and Investments Committee. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Inside Politics. When we come back, we shall be talking about Kenya's debt burden that has been a crisis. Moody's, global agency Moody's, has changed Kenya's credit listing from stable to negative. What does this mean? With Moody's predicting that our debt burden is going to get to 70% of our GDP, what does having a negative credit worthiness mean for an economy like Kenya? And where and when did the rain start beating us? I go too far.
This is KTN News.
Ili kufanikiwa maishani, unahitaji vitu viwili: kunyenyekea na ujasiri. Kwa maana unyenyekevu utakupa fursa ya kujifundisha, na ujasiri utakupa moyo wa kuendelea kufanya jambo.
Kupata sikiza tuni yako ya ili kufanikiwa maishani, bonyeza *811 *797#.
This Sunday on KTN News. Rugby specialist Dennis Ombachi takes multi-potentiality to extraordinary levels.
Professional sport is big business that generates big money and wields big influence. So what happens when sports and
Live in a fast-paced world. We are therefore 2 steps ahead of you. So much goes on with the corridors of power, and therefore it is our obligation to separate the truth from the lies, putting the sanctity of truth to power and holding the society to the sacrosanct of accountability.
When you have a fixed bid governor, it's even worse than when you don't have.
There is no law that says if you are border, you can drive on a pavement.
We demystifying the good, the bad, and the downright ugly as battle lines and daggers are drawn, taking it upon ourselves to be right at the heart of it all, only on Checkpoint.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back once more. This is Inside Politics on KTN News. We want to switch attention now from politics to some economics. Let's take a look at the state of the Kenyan economy. And this is following Friday's action or decision or move by global agency Moody's to change Kenya's credit listing from B2 stable to B2 negative, meaning that this will make Kenya's credit worthiness go down a bit, having a big impact in terms of our economics, macroeconomics. Now, let me start with you, Chero. You've spoken a lot about the national debt in this country, which was at 6.3 trillion by the end of March this year. Moody's is saying this decision was advised by Kenya's debt burden. What are your initial thoughts on this?
You know, I remember the numerous times that His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta has told us that we have no problems when it comes to debt. It's healthy levels, we can sustain it. This is good debt, we can manage it. And we've always known from our economics perspective that things are not okay. The bottom line, and I always come at it because I'm not an economist in that regard, but I'm an economist when it comes to my own pocketbook and my own household budget, that what I have come to understand over time is that loans are taken and loans are eaten. Eurobond 1 came and went. Till today, we don't know what happened. Eurobond 2, we know, was used also to pay Lake Turkana wind power. We have no shortage of loans that we have taken as the country, and we have no shortage of loans that we are unable to repay. Because when loans are taken and the funds are stolen, they are laundered, they're extorted, the crony capitalists kick in, and so on and so forth. Ultimately, it's no surprise that we're in the trillions. And as some economists have said, things are actually going to get worse. So what we are seeing now, including what C.S. Yatani is saying about taxation, things are only going to get worse for Kenyans. And ultimately for me, these are not problems of my making. I never ate the Eurobond. I never ate the loans. I never ate the Chinese loan that came in to do the SGR. We have not benefited. When you look at the socio-economic status of most Kenyans, when you look at how COVID has pushed people up against the wall economically, nobody has any money. We don't have disposable income. You ask yourself, why is it that we are on the hook for trillions of shillings? I say State House is robbing us blind. If you want to go to political parties, go to ODM. What have they done? We even heard questions pointedly asked during presidential debates in 2013. Go to Tanga Tanga, Kieleweke, they're all part of that clique that have been eating and eating and eating unmeasured levels. You go to Parliament, brown envelopes. You go to Senate, they are fighting like children in kindergarten over who is to sit and share this and that and the other. And meanwhile, Moody is warning us. And on the other hand, the president is saying, oh, mbele iko sawa. So as I look at it, we are in for one crazily difficult time as Kenyans. And ultimately we'll say World Bank's idea, IMF's idea, African Development Bank's idea. We're going to start looking at bailouts and look at a 2021 style structural adjustment to get us back on track. And this is the story of Kenya. And if there was any leader worth his or her salt, their issue and their main focus would be around stemming the tide of corruption, the flow of corruption that has brought us to where we are today in this country.
All right. Dismas, you understand these things better than most of us here on the show today. We are not only talking about, the debt crisis in this country. We are talking about our loan affordability and our ability to have solid, liquidity. There is now talk of spreading out Kenya's external debts, which now fall due in, I think, 28 or 29 days. Are you concerned by what's happening? And has this been ongoing anyway? Are Moody's reporting late? What has been ongoing anyway?
Well, every single Russian or Kenyan should be concerned. And when you talk about Moody's, there are two other organizations which control about 91% of the global market. And when they make their position known, their position is as good as the Bible, because they're merely expressing a view. And the view is as good as the Bible, because majority of people who are likely to give Kenyan money have not sufficient resources to spend time in Nairobi to find out how we are managing our situation. So they take their word to the bank. And the reason why an opinion from Moody's is so important is important rather for two reasons, especially for the developing countries. Because that opinion gives a view on how you are managing your fiscal and monetary affairs. And then number two, it will allow you to go to the international capital markets if you need to. Now with this horrible rating, which is B2 negative, and the top rating when you are AAA, it's supposed to be 20. And then it goes all the way to 0. The numeric equivalent is 6. So now for Kenya, we score 6 out of 20, instead of scoring 20 out of 20. What this essentially means is that the global community has no confidence in Jubilee economics in the way they've managed our monetary affairs and our fiscal affairs. It means that next time we want to go look for resources, it's going to be expensive. When you've got the AAA rating when you are 20 over 20, you can easily get money even at 0.25%. But for Kenya, when you get to 6, because people have to factor in the credit risk, ability and willingness to pay, you can even end up getting it at 8% or 10%. So essentially what the global world has told us, that the Jubilee economics in Kenya has been a successful failure. Things have been managed in a horrible manner. And next time you want to go and look for resources, it may be a challenge. But again, we can't say that it's all gloom. There's the opportunity to reschedule our dates. But before we reschedule our dates, we need to ask ourselves, why did Jubilee have a very high appetite for commercial debt? Commercial debt, you are normally given a very short term and high interest rates. So somebody needs to tell us why they did not go for concessionary lending, which is spread maybe even over 50 or 100 years. I don't know why we had a very huge appetite for commercial debt, and especially from people who do not care about governance issues. But making progress, we need to go back to our debtors and have a conversation with our lenders and ask them to allow us to engage in debt rescheduling. And you see, this debt rescheduling is not a complicated science. Even if you've not studied economics to PhD level, you just go back to these people who gave you resources and you tell them, I'm not able to pay in this duration or this tenure. Can we review this? But for some reason, there's no appetite at the National Treasury to reschedule our dates. There are many people who have offered Kenya a unique opportunity to buy these commercial debts, or rather convert the commercial debt into concessionary debt so that we've got a lot more resources back in the country. But for some reason, the people who run our National Treasury are not wanting to pay attention. And then there's this other issue of setting up an independent debt agency at the Treasury so that Kenyans can actually know how much money is owed. Right now, as we speak, nobody knows. And Musalia Mudavadi has been asking the National Treasury, can we create an independent agency so that we know how much money do we have? And even when you want to borrow, we can actually look at the merits and demerits. And also, one of the issues cited by Moody's is about corruption in Kenya. They're saying that corruption has become a big industry, so that there's a very high probability the money you're getting from the international markets is not going to Wanjiku or Mora as Rotich has suggested, but it's going to make some people billionaires. So we need to kill that corruption. And also the political risk. Because also when they're factoring, when they're giving an opinion, they look at the political risk. But making progress, we now need to get a bipartisan approach to sort out this issue. Because if it doesn't happen, then we are going to have something which will make the Greek crisis appear like it was a child's play.
All right. Ken, let's talk about where the rain started beating us. Where do you think, or what do you think of the government, the Jubilee administration's policy on borrowing?
I think Jubilee administration's policy on borrowing is unmitigated failure. I say so because this happened the day government started playing politics with the economics and our policies. The functioning of government is to be left to the bureaucrats. Unfortunately, when the Jubilee duo, Kenyatta and Ruto, took over, they put politics at the center stage, and they were politically running the show. And politicians could call bureaucrats to give directions on what should be done. And secondly, I think Jubilee exploited the failure of a law that caps the borrowing levels, and Parliament as an institution also failed. When Jubilee was developing insatiable appetite for commercial loans, where was Parliament as an institution? This was the time we had the so-called tyranny of numbers, where Parliament was being controlled from State House. Right. And unfortunately, the situation is likely to get worse, as we have this unholy marriage called the handshake, the unholy union between Jubilee and Kieleweke faction. Mwananchi or Makoha in Habondi is left helpless. He has no one to look up to. And in summary, Imbuga tells us that it was better while we waited, for we had some hope. Today we have nothing for which to look forward to. If it is about Odinga, we are looking forward to, he is already in alliance with Jubilee. If it is Ruto, he has killed our past. If it is Musalia, he is either with the other party or the other party. So in Kenya, I think we require a youthful, bureaucratic revolution to change institutions and change persons and then brave a better future.
Ben, I think it has given the economics of this a wide berth, and it's important to address the issues. That if right now the National Treasury doesn't address the issues as raised by Moody's, there's a very high probability of taxation going up. Majority of us will not afford any goods and services. And then number two, KRA now needs to come out clearly and start collecting taxes. There's a section of Kenya that does not pay taxes. And one wonders why Parliament has not come up with an effective legislation. Like, for instance, majority of the people who own properties in Kenya do not even pay for any tax from income from that property. So if Kenya Revenue was to extend that tax bracket so that every single Kenyan with income, either from your salary or your business or from your properties, you pay taxes, then we'll be on a good path. But as we sit right now, it's a very small minority of Kenyans who every single day KRA goes to milk them dry. The people who make a lot of money who are supposed to pay taxes are nowhere. And also the President Kenyatta must come out and kill corruption, because it's useless to go to the international capital markets, get resources to come and finance people buying choppers by the day.
All right. Mark, we're talking about where the rain started beating us. Now, in 2017, Moody's, the same global agency, threatened downgrading Kenya's credit outlook from B1 to B2. And then Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich is reported to have dismissed it, saying, quote unquote, that was desk analysis. What is your take on all this?
First, I shudder whenever I remember Rotich, because he has driven us into very many potholes as a country. But Ben, I want to read for you an excerpt of the summary of the actual Moody report. And I read it because it's a short thing, but because it gives us a bit of perspective. It says, Kenya's credit profile is constrained by an elevated government debt burden and subdued revenue. Fiscal policy effectiveness and credibility are weak despite high fiscal transparency. Kenya's diversified economy, strong growth prospects, and a mature financial sector are key mitigating factors. A persistent tightening of funding conditions as a result of the coronavirus threatens to weaken debt affordability and increase liquidity risk. Why I read this is we need to situate this particular downgrade at this time in the right place. Number one, does Kenya have a high debt to GDP ratio? Of course it does. But what has led to this downgrade is two things. Number one, coronavirus has slowed down our economy and the world economy. But also, the government, in mitigating the effects of corona on the people, reduced VAT by 2%. In reducing VAT by 2%, the government of Kenya immediately took down its ability to get the revenue it needs to pay the bills and to pay our debts. Beyond that, let us be very clear as well that the effectiveness of the Kenya shilling versus the dollar the Kenya shilling has lost value. And we know, since we borrowed in dollars, for every shilling, for every 2 shillings that we lose ground to the dollar, then our debts become more expensive. So this is not just a factor of our high borrowing appetite. It is also a factor of the prevailing circumstances we find ourselves as a country. Some of those factors are beyond us. I do, however, agree that we do need to take very strong steps to stem the tide of economic misfortune that Kenya is facing. It is time, I agree, that we began to collect more taxes. It is time, I agree, that corruption was fought tooth and nail. This is not the time at all to begin hashtags of my thief, my choice. It is not the time, because what we need now is the most frugal, the most committed, the most learned people to take care of our economy. The time for thieves and people who eat our economy by the pound needs to end. That is my take.
Wow. Well, Cherotich, in the same vein of the COVID-19 global pandemic that Mark has introduced us to, the other day Kenya received 78 billion shillings from the International Monetary Fund. Do you expect this to have any impact on our macroeconomics?
Well, macroeconomics, perhaps, in terms of it going in macro chunks into people's pockets and places that can eventually not be accounted for when the Auditor General, if we ever have one back in place, has a look at those records. I am horrified, and I said this last week, that the bilaterals and the multilaterals keep pouring money into this country. It is in bad faith, because those are bad debts. That just adds to the situation that we are facing currently in Kenya. When I look at the response to COVID, and I look at it from a humanitarian perspective, I have not seen any serious move on the part of the government to actually respond in a manner that would make me think that the money coming in from the IMF will be used for anything other than macro projects. And you know, with macro initiatives, you end up, everything gets lost in translation. So I'm disappointed by the government's response, and I have very little confidence in the ability of the government to utilize these resources correctly, even though they're supposed to come to support us in our COVID-19 response. When I think of medical, the medics, the healthcare professionals, not yet fully equipped with their PPEs, when I think of all of these things, I say, what is the point of hundreds of millions and billions of shillings being poured into Kenya if ultimately the people on the front lines and those most affected, that is the men, the women, the children, many who've slept hungry, when you look at Kariobangi evictions, when you look at people who are already on the brink of starvation, now really starving, I say, what is the point of that money? Because that money ultimately has no bearing on their lives.
All right. Kipchumba, let me come to you. We apologize for the break in transmission there. We were not able to hear you earlier, but what is your take on Moody's changing, downgrading our credit worthiness to B2 negative? What does it mean for us as an economy, and what is the likely impact on how the government then changes its policy on borrowing?
I think Ben, Moody's is telling us that our economy has not been able to sustain, has not been sustainable enough to to consume the kind of loans we have been consuming. Ben, when you listen to the fellow panelists saying that we will work on taxation so that we repay loans, that is where our problem is. When you take a loan knowing that the time calculated to work on the loan should repay itself. Its impact on the life of people will impact in such that it amounts to economic growth and thereby the loan being sustainable. If we took a loan to build the SGR, it does not make economic sense for us to tax Kenyans or to increase the VAT and pay the SGR. Prudential financial manners expects us that we demand that the SGR should pay itself. And if you build a road, let's say from Gatanga to Meru, the projection should be such that by the time the 10 years or the 20 years of the loan we got for the road should have been able to pump some money into the economy and to repay the economy. Taxing the economy to repay loans is not sustainable. The other aspect is this. When Kibaki was in a similar situation, what did Kibaki do? Kibaki worked on liquidity. Kibaki made sure that we had strong institutions. Currently, we have an issue. We have people in government who cannot obey court orders. That affects our standing as an investment economy. Nobody wants to invest in a country whereby tomorrow Matiang'i is ordered not to do ABCD by a court of law. He goes ahead and does it with impunity. Why do you want to invest your money in such an economy? The other aspect is this. Our economy is continuously becoming politically intolerant. Who wants to bring their money here? The other thing is, if we were to tie, why are we tying our loans to political manifesto, which is that our politicians have a life duration of 5 years? We should be able to have strong economic pillars like the Vision 2030 so that we tie our dates to a long-term goal and we unite all the economic sectors of the country towards achieving the Vision 2030, or let's say have a Vision 2050, so that when we take loans, it is not for a government and the PR system, for a government to look like they are achieving. That is the danger. The other aspect is this. Dismas has discussed the issue of renegotiating our loans and allowing even people to buy out the loans we have and to convert them into concessions. It might look like it is rocket science, but it is a simple thing of approaching your lenders, telling them that we have found partner B who wants to buy our loans, and then he converts them into concessions. So by doing that, we will make much sense. But if we were to come back here, and Ben McHugh, we are not yet into the effects of COVID. COVID will be devastating on us. And then the dangerous aspect is that you will see we have been downgraded to B2 negative. Ukuri Atani will do nothing. We will just sit and think that it is business as usual. And that is what we did in 2018. When we were downgraded from B1 to B2, instead of CS Rotich acting on that, he said those are desk analysts. But look at what we are doing here. That is the image that IMF and any other lender will go to before anything is done. In simple things, we are saying Kenya has been listed in the international CRB.
Dismas, as we talk solutions, where does our solution lie? Are we talking about private sector creditors? Are we good with the 3 Eurobonds that we have? Do we need a fourth one?
Well, that's a heavy question. So to respond to it, let's work on some fallacies created. That COVID-19 has only affected a country called Kenya, because Moody's has not downgraded any other country on account of COVID-19. And assuming that COVID-19 is only limited to Kenya, and Moody's has downgraded us on that account, then what does it tell us about our economic leadership, our fiscal leadership and monetary leadership? Now, COVID, of course, is something that we don't know whose outcome. We don't even know where we are going. But largely, the statement by Moody's says that it's about our corruption, it's about our huge appetite for commercial debt. It's indicated in black and white. So to try to sanitize the Jubilee administration's failure in monetary and fiscal leadership, and then we quickly come in with COVID-19, is trying to mislead people. And even for Mura back in the village, knows that from the time Jubilee took over, corruption has been the order of the day and the commercial debt has been the order of the day. But you ask a very important question then. How do we make progress? It's so easy. You don't need a PhD in economics. Even for Mura back in the village in Mosocho, if she's given the opportunity, she'll come up with a solution. Number one, engage in debt rescheduling. Let's meet our debtors for a cup of tea and tell them, you see, we're in a precarious position. Let's do it. And this thing has been done before. When you read the books written by Musalia Mudavadi, when he took over as the Minister for Finance, he engaged in debt rescheduling. When you do that, then people will not have issues for concern. And then let's increase our taxation. And I'm not suggesting that if VAT is 14 or 16, you make it to 30. No. There are so many people in Kenya who do not pay taxes. Let's work on that. And then also let's look at the sectors of the economy where we can really catalyze. For instance, right now with COVID, there is the e-commerce space that we can quickly catalyze. There's also manufacturing. That it's actually a tragedy that it has taken COVID for Kenyans to know that Charity Ngilu and companies can actually manufacture PPEs and a mask, that Kenyatta University can come up with a ventilator. Let's take advantage of the opportunities created by COVID to spur the manufacturing sector. Right. But for us to sit here and say that Jubilee is clean and we blame everything on COVID, I think we're misleading Kenyans.
Those are the thoughts from the team here on Inside Politics. Time for another quick commercial break. We continue to ask you for your thoughts. What do you think the government should be doing in terms of its policy on borrowing? What the Moody's global agency Moody's has pegged its downgrading of Kenya's credit worthiness to. Keep telling us what you think. When you come back after this quick commercial break, we'll be getting your calls with your thoughts, comments, questions on what we're discussing today, the politics of the day, the powerful County Public Accounts and Investments Committee of the Senate, the politics that have been ongoing there. What do you think is getting the raw deal here? And also, what do you think government should do to get Kenya's credit worthiness and its macroeconomics right? Stay with us.